Shalom. Welcome to House for the End of the World. I'm Elana Katz. I am happy here to have today with us Dario SRBIC, one of the artists of the current exhibition, and a guest speaker, CHIARA VALCI MAZZARA. She is working as an independent curator in Berlin and also Seoul, Korea, and resident curator at the Mora Foundation in Italy, and has really been following the process of the development of this project space here. And now Dario will say some words about his work.
Yeah, so thank you, Ilana, for inviting me to the project, and we had the space to produce site-specific work, and when we entered this room, it really was extremely spooky, and I had immediate feeling that there is certain kind of pain or trauma that has been covered here, so decided to produce these 3D printed sculptures that are parametrically creating the surface of the pain that is coming from my body, and translated through algorithms into this surface that is being held by these 3D printed needles. And I would actually now go and discuss this with Chiara and talk about the work.
Super. So, hello everybody. Hey.
Oh, just one moment, technical things. So.
Are you here?
Mm-hmm.
Give me two.
So, hello, welcome. Hi, Dario.
Hi, Chiara.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I know you already explained and showed your work. You realized, conceived and realized in the other room, which is called Landscapes of Pain. We were speaking briefly before about how you thought about this work and how it came to you, and which one was the process, the action behind the creation of this work. So would you like to explain me the process, the needles, the pain?
Yeah, so broadly my work actually has to do with how do you embody the concept of human feelings like desire, pain, pleasure into something, into algorithmic world.
Yeah.
But not as a direct translation, but in the sense what would mean for algorithms that we are all surrounded by to experience something like we do.
Yeah.
And the work here is emanating the pain that I felt in producing it.
Okay.
So what I was doing is that I was recording, I was taking a needle and I would be like pricking my skin, and this was producing data which was recording my excitement or my anticipation, the pain, and then algorithms are taking this data and translating this into sculptures.
Okay.
So they're creating this parametric surface which uses that data, using some noise, and then design that surface for the space.
So the curve that is the graphic visualization of your pain is translated into the different heights of the needles that we see in the installation, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Following the path of the installation, the little path is like following the curve of your pain, of your distress, of your adrenaline also.
Exactly, yes. So even now, like if I would be recording now, there will be also a huge excitement in there. So this was also happening when I would be presenting these recordings, and it is also not just to represent the pain, because that kind of creates this metaphysical direct translation of, okay, this is the data, this is the pain, and this is how it looks like. But because the algorithms are also not non-deterministic, because they follow non-linear path.
Of course.
This work is not only translation, but it's also the expression of algorithm.
Okay, the visualization.
Yes, yes, the visualization and also something else.
Okay.
Because the visualization would be only a chart. You can make a chart or a diagram or something
Sure.
like that, but here there is algorithm somehow, in a certain way, you can say, also dealing with my pain.
Yeah.
And then the production of the work, so each needle, like, it takes like 1.5 hours to print one of them, so it took me the whole month to print all of them. There was also in this process, this expression, this finding out how does that pain actually look like, was a long process. So almost like a psychoanalytic process. Yeah.
Exactly. And how long you were keeping the needle inside your skin, inside your body?
So it was more like pricking. So I was looking for a different kind of points in my body and figuring out how strong do I react to that pain.
Okay.
And then I was also being surprised because I was also looking at that data and while I was pricking, so I could actually, I wasn't only reacting to the pain, but I was also reacting to the recording of the pain.
Of course, because you were reacting to the knowledge, to your awareness of the pain that you were seeing there.
Yeah.
So there is the action and the duration of the act of you putting it through your skin, and the duration of the act when you were producing the pieces, the needle produced in 3D, and one after the other. But each needle takes 2 hours, and then you were putting the needle in your skin less time, but then it was expanded by your perception.
Exactly,
somehow.
you are completely right, because I would actually, when I was pricking myself, I would expect that my body would now react really strong, but it wouldn't. It was more sometimes that it was that anticipation of the pain would create a stronger reaction. So I would like, just because before I was pricking myself, I could, there was an excitement recorded from the device,
So sometimes the expectation is even higher than the actual pain.
Exactly, yeah.
And we spoke about your work and your installation here. Which one you think is the topic, the concept, strongly present in your installation here, site-specific, and also in your work, that is the leading topic or the main area of interest of your research, of your practice?
So the main topic of the research is how can we deal with this concept of sensuousness, of any kind of sense perceiving when it comes to the algorithm. And instead of creating these dichotomies or binary opposites of human against machine, subject, object, kind of think of in a way where the work doesn't necessarily immediately create the other, something that is excluded, but to think of more like this work, or generally the work that I make in quantum physical terms, so where I actually don't see the ontological difference between who I am and what I do and what the algorithm does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's an encounter, somehow a dialogue.
Exactly.
This on a foreign territory, which is the creation of the art piece, and there is the dialogue. There is some sort of encounter, respecting your being and the work. And
you are mentioning here in a very extremely important word for that is in my work, which is, as you said, encounter. That is basically a constitutive for this work, because it is not that there is me and the work and then there is a counter, but the encounter is basically defining and producing me and the work.
And discovering.
So, exactly, yeah. So the encounter is actually the moment where the whole thing happens.
Very interesting. And in this installation, you choose that room. And you said that you felt that in that room there was some sort of pain covered, and you wanted somehow to uncover it. And why that room? Why you put these needles on the floor, not on the walls? Which one was your sensation and your intuition while installing the work like this?
So what happened is that when we walked into this apartment and when I saw that room, I was like, okay, there is a kind of secret here, or there is a certain kind of underlying trauma that I wanted to make visible. And as we spoke before about why is, for example, why the sculptures aren't on the wall, or why they are not on the plinths or something like that, is that as you briefly mentioned, and really like that idea, as if the paint was growing out of the floor, like a plant or something. So if it was covered on the ground or under the ground through these needles that are carrying the surface of the paint, the parametric surface that is being delineated by them, is almost as the work managed to let the pain be expressed. And not only mine pain, but the pain that was in the room already. So it was almost like also collaborative practice with the space as well.
So there has been a meta-encounter between you, your work, your pain, and the pre-existing covered pain.
Yes, exactly.
That is there.
Yeah. And especially also because I usually don't work that site-specific. I wasn't until now working in a site-specific manner, but then this algorithmically produced work is actually really receptive to that kind of idea, because then when I was producing the work and I came in here, I had to measure the whole space in order to create the parameters for the algorithm. So the algorithm needed to know how big is the room, how big is the area where this surface will spread. So it is not only that I was taking my own psychological or my own perception of the space, but I was also taking the physical dimension of the space and feeding that data into algorithm. Yeah.
That is very interesting, because I noticed that obviously like the needles, they are coming out from this square, this surface. So they are laying on a surface, so on the ground, and then they are having the square at the base. So there is a surface and a meta surface. So the algorithm even calculated the space in proximity right around the needle that comes out, and calculated this space relating to the other little space and to the ground of the room. So it's really, really intertwined with the space and the pain and the coverage of the pain, because the whole floor is covered with these needles.
So it's not only covered, it is also that the whole sculpture is actually prohibiting you from entering the space. So it's almost like that the work so if there was, for example, reluctance for us to get into the room when we just came to see this whole apartment, then after installation the work simply did not permit to enter the room, which kind of was making this feeling that was there at the beginning pretty obvious now, and but also taking that energy away that was there. So
it was a cathartic. So you know the pain. You can see the pain. It's manifestation. It's manifestation there.
Exactly, and this is just to really important point to kind of not think of the work as representing the pain, but to think of the work as emanating the pain.
Beautiful.
Okay.
That's fantastic. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Dario. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Perfect. Hello.
Chiara, hello.
Elana, what a pleasure.
Yeah, it's a surprise to find you.
So, let's just make sure.
Okay.
So it's a pleasure to speak with you again,
Yes, thank you.
and yeah, to visit this beautiful exhibition. I know this exhibition is being presented already. Now it's closing, and it's beautiful to have the occasion to have this talk and this conversation, especially about your work and about the project and how your work relates to the whole project, to the house of the end of the world, and to the work of Dario, about which we spoke before. So I wanted to ask you, something about this work. How? What about this work? What about this landscape that we see also here?
Yes, all right, so it was developed in a way that was very intuitive. Working again with irons and with this burning, which is something that I've done in previous works, and
Exactly.
my interest in it is because
Yes.
it is a situation of violence, actually. It deals with a situation of violence and a visual recording of violence. And so there are, I think it's 36 bricks here, and the irons are burning them with timers that are all going at different times. And there's no standard, there's no protocol with it. It's but there's always an activity, you know, it's a very active sculpture, and always without my body in it. So, and this is important specifically as I work as a performance
Absolutely.
artist usually, that it's active but with the absence of the artist, and specifically of the hand that actually makes it active. And so I wanted to create a sort of factory-like feeling with all of these, I don't know, the burning, the timers, the steam sometimes, and Yasmin Hagedorn, who wrote this art historian, who wrote a short text on this exhibition, had the idea, which I identify very much with, that this is sort of a manifestation, a representation of how the unconscious functions, you know, that it's always active, it's always ticking, but one can only see it from the periphery, and it is with the absence of, you know, one cannot be actually present in it. So I think that she was quite right with that.
It's also an organic flow, a repetition of bricks on top of each other, cloth around the bricks, a repetition of the burning, the action of burning that is proven by your absence, and the repetition of the tickling of the timer. So it's all it flows, is organic, is unmeasurable, unexpectable, but constantly there, as you said. And there is the pain. You were telling me that the iron and the burning for you.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting because the iron, when the iron burns, actually it's not a visible burning. It's a violence that takes place covered, and then it's only revealed once it has been carried through with, you know.
Of course.
And so I've never associated the iron really with something domestic or something female, you know. It's been more the only use of it that ever really I could relate to or made sense to me was to burn something with it.
Yeah.
And it's essentially like one of these, the ways that they brand a cow or something. But as it essentially does the same thing, but it has a nice, tidy, clean package.
Yes.
Where you don't see also what's occurring, and it's gentle and it's even pleasant, or you know.
Yeah.
And so this is exactly what I'm interested in, is these instances of violence, because I'm very interested in violence, but primarily psychological violence.
Yes.
And the instances that are very hard to decipher, difficult to distinguish, and are maybe even subtle in a manner that could easily be ignored or dismissed or erased.
Of course, and repeated in time and continuously present, and only then afterwards you would somehow be aware or acknowledge them. And it's interesting what you say, that while burning the surface is covered, so there is the pressure of the iron on the cloth, as well as there is the pressure of the bricks on top of each other. These bricks that are concrete, white concrete, and they are wrapped inside this cloth, and there is a system of meanings and meta meanings, which I think is the strongest one, which speaks about psychological violence and all these levels of perception that we can have about psychological violence, and that's somehow the landscape of it that is always there. And there are also different stimuli, I would say, because I can smell the burnt cloth. I could hear the tickling of the timers, and I can see your action, the action you did before, and you're present there through your absence in the landscape of your work. I wanted to ask you, do you think that this could be a visual extension of the pain, the psychological pain, or rather a visual representation or an encounter, as we said before with Dario? He said it's not a visual representation, his work, but rather an encounter between his pain, his work. I was curious to know for you.
No, that's a really interesting question. Yes, I also would not say that it's like an illustration of it or something, certainly that not. An encounter, I'm not sure about that either. There was one other option, there was one other...
An extension.
An extension, yeah. It's perhaps, I would say it's more related to that. It's simply like, I think that these structures that are present, consciously, unconsciously, associations and consequences of manifest themselves in different ways, with different faces, but all the time in the work that we make, in the actions that we do, and you know, and so I would say it's a manifestation of, but just yet another manifestation of, in the midst of
one
many.
of the possible manifestations.
In the midst of many.
What about the relationship with the space? Why you choose this room? Why your work now is here in this portion of the floor? Why is on the floor? And how it changed during the last month, during this exhibition?
Yeah, it's well. So immediately when I was offered this space very generously, and immediately when I walked in this room, I had the sense, okay, this room is my body, and I wanted to treat this room as my body.
That's
and
very
as,
interesting.
Yeah, so making site-specific work,
Yeah.
and recognizing the enclosed space as a metaphorical site for my body. And I still hope to work more directly with that, because the work in that direction is a bit more, it requires more technology.
Of course.
But then what organically developed was this situation, you know, and I think that there's these elements here that are, it's symbols of home that I often deal with, and symbols of comfort.
Okay.
So like the pillow is appearing in many different
Exactly.
ways. Okay, this is the performance from KWADRAT last year, burning the pillow with interacting with the body. But I've had pillows of ice, I've had pillows of stone, World War II gravestones, resting on these pillows of stone. And when I started wrapping this textile around these stones, I realized, okay, this is really a reference to that previous work where it's like it references the pillow, but it's a dysfunctional pillow.
Yeah.
And they're also closed with many pins, so it has quite a invisible violence there as well.
Yeah, I can see.
And so I think that this space, maybe it's that this space was a home, and there's so much intrigue and curiosity and maybe even a bit of like uncomfortableness that I feel about what was the history of this place, and what sort, you know, what does my presence mean here, and perhaps this is one of the reasons why I'm working with these objects that are references to home and dysfunctionality of the traditional concept of home.
Yeah, you named the pillows, and I do believe that this room could have been the bedroom, actually.
Perhaps, yeah.
Perhaps.
But I also noticed, when all of the bricks arrived, wow, it looked like a cemetery.
Yeah, because then there is the stone, the coldness of the stone, but then the softness of the cloth, but then the cloth is wrapped around. And the burn is really, really a system of meanings, references, and meta meanings that carries a lot in this installation and in this work. I was wondering, would you say while you're acting, there is your action that happened before, there is not anymore your hand there, would you see these objects that we see here as relics of your action, of something that has happened, of the violence that was there in this portion of cloth under the iron? Or is rather a flow, an organic flow?
I feel them to be independent works on their own, which is that is not performance-based. You know, that, I mean, I noticed that it's happening a bit recently, that my body is becoming more removed from my work.
Exactly.
And I think it has, many reasons, but it can have also something to do with all the work I've done with psychoanalysis, you know, and analyzing and these things that, construction started to change. But it's not often that I can work in a way that I can work not with my body and produce something that I feel it really is whole.
Okay.
But with these works, I do feel as though they are very strong, that they belong in this installation, but they can also stand independently, is my feeling about them. And I wouldn't call them relics, no. In fact, I never liked the word relics.
Okay.
Even when it is full-on performance.
But it still brings with itself a series of allures or of meaning that are very specific, is very special. And I see, listening to you, why you wouldn't call them like this. I have a question though. As you were speaking, I was thinking, do you feel, and if yes, which one is the difference when your body was completely into the performance, you were using your body, and now with this installation where you removed your body from from the stage of the work, because I feel your body being there through his absence, and I was wondering which one is the difference. Is there a different awareness of your body, or you feel your body was a catalyzer for these works?
Yeah, certainly to arrive at these works, it's certainly coming from everything that the work I did previous to it, and but yeah, I would say actually that in some cases, I'm not completely finished working with my body, but in some ways that is naturally, I'm distancing from that because I've reconciled so much within my body. Obviously my topics are violence and trauma and memory and erased memory, and my body was a tool actually in me reaching understandings, or at least coming to inquiries about those things.
Yes.
And as this has, as there's been a movement in that, as something has changed, shifted, reconciled, then the work has naturally moved outside of my body more.
That's what I feel. That is a very strong work, and still underlining your topic, the trauma. But there, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Did you show the installation, Martin?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Ciao. Oh, I want to give you a hug.
Hug.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.